The car was found on May 18, 2010, 4 days after anyone had last heard from them. A local fisherman named Robert Thibodeau spotted it around 6:30 a.m. while driving to his usual spot on the bayou. The vehicle sat on the shoulder of Bayou St. Clair Road, a narrow two-lane stretch that cut through wetlands about 40 miles south of Hammond, Louisiana. Thibodeau slowed down as he passed. The car, a silver 2004 Honda Accord, had its windows up and doors closed. Nothing appeared broken or damaged. He kept driving.
Thanks for watching this video. I'm always curious who's watching and where you're from. Drop your city, the time, and what the weather's like where you are in the comments. If you're into this kind of story, make sure to subscribe. There are a lot more strange and unsettling cases coming. Now, let's get into the story.
Cars broke down on these roads all the time. 2 hours later, on his way back, the Honda was still there. Thibodeau pulled over this time and approached. He looked through the windows. Personal items covered the back seat: 3 purses, several phones, a small cooler, folded clothes. The keys hung in the ignition. Thibodeau called the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office at 9:17 a.m. Deputies arrived within 20 minutes. They ran the plates. The car belonged to Nicole Guidry, age 24, from Thibodaux, Louisiana, a town about 90 miles southwest. The registration listed an address on Laurel Street. Sheriff's Deputy Mark Fontenot opened the unlocked driver's side door and began cataloging what he found. 3 purses, each containing a wallet with ID and cash. 3 cell phones, all powered off. A small red cooler with melted ice and unopened drinks. Concert tickets from the Crescent City Music Festival in New Orleans. A road map of Louisiana folded to show the route from New Orleans back toward Thibodaux. Sunglasses, chapstick, a half-empty bag of chips. Everything someone would need for a drive home. The keys in the ignition turned easily. Fontenot started the engine. It ran smoothly. The gas tank showed just under half full. No warning lights appeared on the dashboard. He shut off the engine and radioed for assistance. By noon, investigators from the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office had established a perimeter around the vehicle. They photographed the car from every angle. They processed the interior for fingerprints. They examined the exterior for damage, finding none. The soil around the vehicle caught their attention. 3 sets of footprints led away from the car toward the tree line about 30 feet from the road. The prints appeared clear in the soft ground near the shoulder. All 3 distinct, all heading in the same direction. Crime scene technician Amanda Bro noted in her report that the prints suggested no signs of struggle or force, gait patterns consistent with walking at normal pace. The prints disappeared where the ground became harder near the trees. Search dogs arrived at 2:00 p.m. They picked up scents leading into the woods but lost the trail within a quarter mile. The area beyond the road consisted of thick vegetation, standing water, and dense underbrush typical of Louisiana lowland. Visibility extended only a few yards in any direction. By late afternoon, investigators had identified the 3 women connected to the vehicle: Nicole Guidry, 24, Madison Hebert, 26, and Ashley Como, 27. All 3 lived in Thibodaux. The car belonged to Nicole. Sheriff's deputies drove to Thibodaux that evening to notify the families. Nicole's mother, Patricia Guidry, told deputies she had last spoken with her daughter on May 14th, around 8:00 p.m. Nicole had called from New Orleans to say they were leaving the festival and heading home. She sounded tired, but happy. The call lasted less than 2 minutes. She said they had a good time, Patricia recalled later. She said they'd be back late and she'd call me tomorrow. That call never came. Madison's father, James Hebert, confirmed he received a similar call from his daughter around the same time on May 14th. She told me they were getting on the road, he said. Said it was a long day, but worth it. That was it. Ashley's sister, Melissa Como, had not heard from Ashley since May 13th, the day before the festival ended. That wasn't unusual, Melissa explained. Ashley wasn't great about checking in. I figured she was busy having fun. The families began calling the women's phones on May 15th when none of them returned home as expected. All 3 phones went straight to voicemail. By May 16th, the families had filed missing persons reports with the Thibodaux Police Department. The discovery of the abandoned car on May 18th shifted the case from missing persons to something more serious. The Crescent City Music Festival had taken place May 13th to 14th in City Park, New Orleans. Investigators contacted festival organizers and obtained footage from security cameras at various entrances and exits. The footage confirmed that all three women attended the festival on both days. They were seen entering together on May 13th around 11 a.m. and leaving together on May 14th around 7:30 p.m. Security footage from the parking area showed them walking to Nicole's Honda Accord at 7:42 p.m. on May 14th. All three appeared relaxed. They carried bags and talked to each other as they approached the vehicle. Nicole unlocked the car. Madison got in the front passenger seat. Ashley climbed in back. The car pulled out of the parking lot at 7:48 p.m. That was the last confirmed sighting. The drive from City Park in New Orleans to Bayou St. Clair Road, where the car was found, covered approximately 40 miles. Under normal conditions, the trip should have taken about 50 minutes via Interstate 10 and then south on smaller highways. But Nicole's car was found on Bayou St. Clair Road, a route that made no sense if they were driving home to Thibodaux. Thibodaux lay southwest of New Orleans. Bayou St. Clair Road ran southeast, deeper into St. Tammany Parish, away from their destination. The road served mainly as access to fishing spots and hunting camps. Few people traveled it after dark. Investigators found no evidence the women had stopped anywhere between New Orleans and where the car was discovered. No receipts, no ATM transactions, no security camera footage from gas stations or convenience stores along any logical route. The timeline created questions no one could answer. The women left the festival around 7:48 p.m. Their families received calls from them around 8 p.m. The car was found more than 40 miles away on a road that led nowhere they should have been going. On May 19th, the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office launched a full-scale search operation. More than 60 personnel participated, including deputies, state police, volunteers from the community, and specialized search and rescue teams. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging cameras flew grid patterns over the swampland. Dogs worked the area around where the car had been found. They found nothing. By May 22nd, the active search was scaled back. The official statement from Sheriff Jack Strain described the case as an active investigation into the disappearance of 3 women under suspicious circumstances. The families held a press conference on May 25th. Patricia Guidry, James Hebert, and Melissa Comeau sat at a table in front of local news cameras. Patricia read from a prepared statement, her voice steady but strained. "Our daughters are missing. Someone knows something. If you saw anything on the night of May 14th or early morning of May 15th, please come forward. These are good girls. They didn't just vanish." The press conference aired on local news stations throughout southern Louisiana. A tip line was established. Dozens of calls came in over the following days. None provided useful information. The case remained open but began to fade from public attention. Weeks turned into months. The families continued to search, to post flyers, to pressure investigators. But there were no leads, no bodies, no witnesses, no answers. The official determination, filed in October 2010, classified the case as a suspected abduction with unknown perpetrators. The file noted the unusual circumstances: the abandoned car with personal belongings, the footprints suggesting voluntary departure from the vehicle, the unexplained route, but offered no conclusions. Nicole Guidry, Madison Hebert, and Ashley Comeau became 3 more names in a database of unsolved disappearances. 9 years passed. Nicole Guidry was born in Thibodaux on March 12, 1986. She graduated from Thibodaux High School in 2004 and started working at Café Evangeline, a diner on Canal Boulevard, a few months later. By 2010, she had been waitressing there for nearly 6 years. The owner, Marcel Broussard, described her as reliable. "She showed up on time, did her job, didn't complain," he said. "Good with customers." People asked for her section. Nicole lived in a small rental apartment on Laurel Street, about 10 minutes from the cafe. She lived alone. Her parents, Patricia and Ronald Guidry, lived 15 minutes away on the other side of town. She visited them most Sundays for dinner. Patricia Guidry recalled that her daughter had been restless in the months before she disappeared. "She kept talking about leaving," Patricia said. "Not in a bad way. She just wanted something different. She'd say, 'Mama, I can't work at the cafe forever.'" Nicole had started taking online courses in graphic design in early 2010. She worked her shifts at the cafe, then spent evenings on her laptop working through tutorials and assignments. She told her mother she wanted to build a portfolio and eventually move to a bigger city where she could find work in that field. She had plans, Patricia said. Real plans. She wasn't just dreaming. Madison Hebert was the oldest of the three women. Born on August 3, 1983, she grew up on a farm outside Thibodaux, where her family raised cattle and grew sugarcane. After high school, she attended Nicholls State University in Thibodaux for 2 years, but didn't complete her degree. In 2006, she started working as a veterinary assistant at Bayou Animal Clinic on Jackson Street. Dr. Sarah Landry, who ran the clinic, said Madison had a natural way with animals. She was patient, Dr. Landry recalled, even with the difficult ones. Dogs that came in aggressive or scared, she could calm them down. She had that ability. Madison still lived at her parents' house in 2010. Her father, James Hebert, said she contributed to household expenses and helped with work around the property. She wasn't one to sit still, James said, always doing something, fixing fences, helping with the cattle, working at the clinic. She kept busy. But like Nicole, Madison had been talking about change. James remembered conversations at dinner in the spring of 2010. She said she wanted to see more of the country, he recalled. Said she'd spent her whole life in Lafourche Parish and wanted to know what else was out there. Madison had started saving money more deliberately that year. She picked up extra shifts at the clinic when Dr. Landry needed help on weekends. She sold some of her old furniture and belongings online, small amounts but consistent. She was serious about it, James said. I could tell. Ashley Comeau was the youngest, born January 19, 1983, though technically only 7 months younger than Madison. She had worked various jobs since high school: retail clerk at a clothing store, receptionist at a dentist's office, cashier at a grocery store. None of the positions lasted more than a year or two. By spring 2010, Ashley was unemployed. She had left her most recent job at an insurance office in February after what her sister Melissa described as a disagreement with management. Ashley had a hard time with authority, Melissa said. She didn't like being told what to do. She'd argue if she thought something was stupid. That didn't always go over well. Ashley lived with Melissa and Melissa's husband in a house on St. Charles Street. The arrangement was temporary, Melissa explained, while Ashley figured out her next move. She paid what she could when she had money, Melissa said. I didn't pressure her. She was family. Ashley spent most of her time that spring applying for jobs, though with little enthusiasm. Melissa recalled finding her sister on the back porch one afternoon in April, staring out at the yard. I asked if she was okay, Melissa said. She told me she was tired of pretending she wanted to stay here. She said, I'm not built for this place. I asked what she meant. She said, this whole town, this whole life, none of it fits. The three women had known each other since junior high. They attended Thibodaux Junior High together starting in 1998, then moved through high school in the same social circle. After graduation, their lives diverged in terms of jobs and routines, but they remained close. They met regularly for dinner or drinks. They texted constantly. When one of them had a bad day, the other two showed up. They were like sisters, Patricia Guidry said, closer than sisters sometimes. They understood each other. In April 2010, the three women started meeting more frequently. Madison's father noticed his daughter leaving the house several evenings a week to meet up with Nicole and Ashley. She'd say they were going to get coffee or go to someone's apartment to watch movies, James said. Normal stuff, but it was more often than usual. Melissa Comeau noticed the same pattern with Ashley. She'd been moping around the house for weeks, Melissa recalled. Then suddenly, she had energy again. She was always on her phone texting, going out to meet the girls. She seemed lighter. Patricia Guidry remembered Nicole mentioning that the three of them were working on something. I asked what she meant, Patricia said. She smiled and said, just plans, Mama. We're making plans. I thought she meant planning a trip or something fun. I didn't think much of it. In early May, Nicole asked Marcel Broussard if she could take the weekend of May 13th to 14 off from the cafe. He approved the request without issue. Madison requested the same days off from Bayou Animal Clinic. Dr. Landry agreed. Nicole told her mother they were going to a music festival in New Orleans. She said they needed a break, Patricia recalled, said they'd been stressed and wanted to do something fun together before summer got busy. The Crescent City Music Festival was a small event, not one of the major festivals New Orleans hosted annually. It featured local bands and regional acts across 2 days in City Park. Tickets cost $30 per day. Nicole purchased 3 two-day passes online on May 7th. The women planned to drive to New Orleans early on May 13th, attend the festival both days, then drive home the evening of May 14th. No hotel reservations, no overnight plans, just a day trip stretched across 2 days. Nicole's Honda Accord was the obvious choice for the drive. It was the most reliable vehicle among them. Ashley didn't own a car. Madison had a truck, but it consumed gas quickly. On the morning of May 13th, Nicole picked up Madison at her parents' farm around 8:30 a.m. They drove to Melissa's house and picked up Ashley around 8:50 a.m. Melissa watched them pull away from the curb. They were laughing about something, Melissa said. All 3 of them. Ashley turned around and waved at me through the back window. That was the last time I saw her. The drive from Thibodaux to New Orleans took about an hour. The women arrived at City Park around 10 o'clock a.m. Security footage showed them entering the festival grounds at 11:03 a.m. They spent both days at the festival. Attendees interviewed later by investigators remembered seeing 3 women matching their descriptions. One festival volunteer, Katie Bernard, recalled talking to them briefly near the main stage on May 14th. They seemed like they were having a good time, Bernard said. One of them, I think the one with dark curly hair, asked me which band was playing next. We chatted for a minute. They were friendly, normal. No one reported seeing anything unusual about their behavior. No arguments, no signs of distress, no interactions with anyone who stood out. The women left the festival around 7:30 p.m. on May 14th. They walked to the parking area, got in the car, and drove away. Security footage captured all of this clearly. What happened after they left City Park remained unknown. The calls to their families around 8:00 p.m. indicated they were alive and apparently safe at that time. Nicole told her mother they were heading home. Madison told her father the same thing. But the location where the car was found, Bayou St. Clair Road, more than 40 miles southeast of New Orleans, contradicted those statements. If they were driving home to Thibodaux, they should have taken Interstate 10 west, then Highway 90 south. That route was direct and well lit. Instead, the car ended up on an isolated road in the opposite direction, in an area none of them had any known reason to visit. Investigators interviewed friends, co-workers, and family members throughout June 2010, trying to understand why the women might have deviated from their route home. No one could provide an explanation. Marcel Broussard at Café Evangeline said Nicole had never mentioned Bayou St. Clair Road or any location in St. Tammany Parish. Dr. Landry said the same about Madison. Melissa Como confirmed Ashley had no connections to that area. I asked everyone I could think of, Melissa said. Friends from high school, people Ashley worked with, no one knew why they'd be out there. The theory that emerged in the investigation was that someone had forced them to drive to that location. But the evidence didn't support force. The footprints leading away from the car suggested they had walked away voluntarily. The car showed no signs of struggle. Their belongings were left behind neatly, not scattered or disturbed. Another theory suggested they had gone there intentionally for a reason investigators hadn't discovered. But what reason? The road led to nothing but swamp and a few scattered hunting camps, none of which had any connection to the women. The case file from 2010 contains a note from Detective Raymond Trosclair, who led the investigation. 3 women with their whole lives in front of them don't just walk into a swamp and disappear. Someone knows what happened. We just haven't found them yet. By the end of 2010, the investigation had effectively stalled. There were no new leads. No witnesses came forward. The searches of the swampland around Bayou St. Clair Road had been thorough, but yielded nothing. The families continued to hope. They organized search parties. They kept the case in local media. They contacted psychics, private investigators, anyone who might help. Years passed. The case grew cold. Then, in August 2019, everything changed. The search operation that began on May 19, 2010, was one of the largest St. Tammany Parish had organized in years. Sheriff Jack Strain committed significant resources to finding the 3 missing women, aware that time was critical in cases like this. The terrain made everything difficult. Bayou St. Clair Road ran through lowland that flooded seasonally. In mid-May, water levels were moderate, but still high enough that much of the area east and south of the road remained submerged under 6 to 18 inches of standing water. Thick vegetation, cypress trees, palmetto, dense underbrush, created visibility of only a few yards in most directions. Search and Rescue Coordinator Louis Arsenault described the challenges in his operational report. Standard grid search patterns were impossible to maintain, he wrote. Teams had to navigate around water, fallen trees, and vegetation too thick to pass through. Progress was slow. The search focused initially on the area immediately around where the car had been found. Teams worked outward from that point in expanding circles. They used machetes to cut through dense brush. They waded through shallow water, probing the bottom with poles. Cadaver dogs were brought in on May 20th. 2 German shepherds, trained specifically to detect human remains, worked separate sections of the search area. Both dogs showed interest near the tree line where the footprints had led, but neither could maintain a trail beyond a quarter mile. Handler Patricia Duhan explained the difficulty. The water disrupts scent, she said. If they walk through standing water, the dogs lose the trail. We tried multiple entry points, but we couldn't get a solid track. Helicopters from the Louisiana State Police flew over the area for 3 consecutive days. They used forward-looking infrared cameras designed to detect heat signatures through tree cover. The technology had proven effective in previous searches, but in this case, it revealed nothing. We found deer, wild hogs, a few alligators, Pilot Marcus Thibodeau reported. No human heat signatures. If they were out there during our flights, they were either undercover, we couldn't penetrate, or already deceased. Volunteers from Thibodeau and surrounding communities joined the search. At its peak on May 21st, more than 80 people participated. They walked in lines through accessible areas, calling out the women's names, looking for any sign: clothing, footprints, disturbed vegetation. James Hebert, Madison's father, was among the volunteers. He spent 4 days in the swamp, searching until dark each evening. I kept thinking we'd find something, he said later. A piece of clothing, a shoe, anything. But there was nothing. It was like they'd disappeared into thin air. While the physical search continued, investigators worked to reconstruct the women's movements and identify any potential suspects or motives. Detective Raymond Trausclair led the investigative team. He started by analyzing the phone records for all 3 women. The records showed normal activity leading up to May 14th. Text messages between the 3 of them discussed the festival, what time to leave, what to bring. Nothing indicated trouble or concern. The last activity on all 3 phones occurred around 8:00 p.m. on May 14th. Nicole's phone pinged a cell tower near Slidell, Louisiana, consistent with the location of Bayou St. Clair Road. After 8:00 p.m., all 3 phones went offline simultaneously. That suggests the phones were powered off deliberately, Trausclair noted in his report. Not dead batteries. All 3 at once would be unlikely. Someone turned them off. The question was, who? The women themselves? Or someone else? Investigators reviewed security footage from the festival extensively. They identified the 3 women in multiple video clips from both days. They appeared together in most footage, though occasionally 1 or 2 would be visible without the third, suggesting they split up at times to use restrooms or get food. Festival security director James Melanson reviewed hours of footage personally. I was looking for anyone who seemed to be following them, watching them, approaching them repeatedly, he said. I didn't see anything like that. They moved through the crowd like everyone else. One piece of footage drew particular attention. Recorded at 6:45 p.m. on May 14th, about 45 minutes before the women left the festival, it showed all 3 standing near the south entrance, apparently in conversation. Nicole held her phone to her ear. Madison and Ashley stood close, listening. The call lasted approximately 90 seconds. Nicole put the phone away. The 3 women talked for another minute, then walked back toward the main stage area. Investigators pulled Nicole's phone records for that time. The call came from a number registered to a prepaid cell phone with no name attached. The phone had been purchased with cash at a Walmart in Baton Rouge 3 weeks earlier. After the call to Nicole on May 14th, the phone was never used again. "That's a red flag," Trosclair said during a case review meeting in June 2010. Someone called her from a burner phone right before they left, someone who didn't want to be identified. Attempts to trace the phone led nowhere. The Walmart security footage from the date of purchase showed dozens of customers buying prepaid phones. Without additional evidence, identifying the buyer was impossible. Investigators theorized that the mysterious call might have convinced the women to deviate from their planned route home. Perhaps someone they knew asked to meet them. Perhaps it was a threat that forced them to comply, but this theory had problems. The security footage showed the women leaving the festival calmly. They didn't appear frightened or coerced. They walked at a normal pace, talked to each other, got in the car without hesitation. The calls to their families around 8:00 p.m. also contradicted the idea of immediate danger. Both Nicole and Madison sounded normal, even tired. Neither said anything suggesting distress. Investigators interviewed every person they could identify who had contact with the women in the weeks before they disappeared. Co-workers at Café Evangeline described Nicole as preoccupied but not worried. Dr. Landry said Madison seemed cheerful and focused at the clinic. Melissa Comeau confirmed Ashley had been in good spirits before the trip. No one reported threats, arguments, or concerning behavior from strangers. A review of the women's financial records showed nothing unusual. No large withdrawals, no suspicious purchases. Nicole's bank account had $847. Madison's had $1,203. Ashley's checking account showed $94, though she also had $380s in cash, according to Melissa, kept in an envelope in her room. Their social media accounts, Facebook primarily, as it was the dominant platform in 2010, revealed normal activity. Posts about work, plans for the festival, photos with friends. The last post from any of them was from Madison on May 13th, a photo of the three women standing in front of the city park entrance with the caption, "Festival Day 1." Investigators looked into potential suspects with criminal histories in the area where the car was found. St. Tammany Parish had its share of people with records, drug offenses, assaults, burglaries. Detectives interviewed several individuals who lived near Bayou St. Clair Road or who were known to frequent the area for hunting or fishing. None panned out. Alibis checked, no connections to the women. No evidence. The theory of random abduction by a stranger seemed statistically unlikely but couldn't be ruled out. Three women together presented a more difficult target than someone alone. Abducting three people simultaneously required planning, strength, probably multiple perpetrators. But if it was planned, why were their belongings left in the car? Why were the phones not taken? Why was there no sign of struggle? The footprints remained the most puzzling evidence. Crime scene technician Amanda Bro examined them carefully and took detailed photographs and measurements. Her analysis confirmed 3 distinct sets of prints, all consistent with the shoe sizes the women wore. The depth and spacing suggest normal walking, Bro noted. Not running, not stumbling. They walked away from that car on their own, at a regular pace, in the same direction. What made them leave the car? Where were they going? The area where the footprints led had been searched multiple times. Investigators cut back vegetation to examine the ground more closely. They found nothing. No more footprints, no disturbed soil, no evidence of any kind. It was as if the women had walked 30 feet into the woods and vanished. By early June, the active search was formally suspended. Sheriff Strain announced that investigators would continue to pursue leads, but the deployment of search teams was no longer sustainable given the lack of results. "We have covered every accessible area within a 2-mile radius of where the vehicle was found," Strain said at a press conference on June 8th. "We will continue to investigate this case aggressively, but at this point, we need new information to direct our efforts." The families were devastated but not surprised. They had seen the searches producing nothing day after day. They had watched hope fade from the faces of the deputies and volunteers. Patricia Guidry spoke to reporters after the announcement. "Someone knows something," she said. "These girls didn't just evaporate. Someone saw them. Someone talked to them. Someone knows where they are." A reward fund was established. Local businesses contributed. By the end of June, it totaled $15,000 for information leading to the location or recovery of the 3 women. Tips came in. Most were well-intentioned but useless. Someone thought they saw one of the women at a gas station in Mississippi. Another caller claimed to have dreams about where the bodies were buried. A psychic from Texas offered to help for a consultation fee. Each tip was investigated. None led anywhere. The case appeared on local news periodically over the following months. On the 6-month anniversary of the disappearance, a segment aired on a Baton Rouge station featuring interviews with the families. On the 1-year anniversary in May 2011, another round of coverage reminded the public that the case remained unsolved. But as time passed, public attention diminished. The case became one of many cold files in the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office. Detective Trosclair never stopped working it. He reviewed the evidence regularly, looking for something that had been missed. He followed up on occasional tips. He maintained contact with the families, updating them when there was anything to report, which was rare. In his personal notes, Trosclair wrote repeatedly about the lack of physical evidence. No bodies, no crime scene, no witnesses, no motive, he wrote in August 2012. This case defies every pattern I know. 3 people don't vanish this completely without either tremendous luck or tremendous planning. Which was it? The official file remained open. The case status: unsolved suspected abduction. 3 women missing, presumed dead, though no bodies had been recovered. Years accumulated. 2011 became 2012. Then 2013. The families aged under the weight of not knowing. Patricia Guidry's hair turned gray. James Hebert stopped talking about his daughter to anyone outside the family. Melissa Comeau moved away from Thibodaux in 2014, unable to stay in the place that reminded her constantly of her missing sister. The case seemed destined to remain forever unresolved. And then, on August 12, 2019, a DNA match appeared in the system that changed everything. The DNA match came from Tempe, Arizona. On August 9, 2019, Tempe police arrested a woman named Sarah Mitchell on charges of identity theft and fraud. She had been living in an apartment on Mill Avenue under that name for approximately 2 years. Her landlord had reported suspicious activity, multiple packages arriving under different names, irregular payments, evasive behavior. During booking, standard procedure required fingerprints and a DNA sample. The sample was processed and entered into the national database. On August 12th, the system flagged a match. The DNA belonged to Ashley Comeau, missing since May 2010 from Louisiana. Detective Maria Cortez of the Tempe Police Department made the notification to Louisiana authorities. She called the St. Tammany Parish Sheriff's Office at 10:22 a.m. Mountain Time. "I need to speak to whoever is handling the Comeau case," she told the desk sergeant. "We have her in custody." Detective Raymond Trosclair received the call 20 minutes later. He had retired from the sheriff's office in 2016, but still consulted on cold cases. When the desk sergeant told him about the call from Arizona, he drove to the station immediately. Cortez explained the situation. "She's been living here as Sarah Mitchell," she said. "We arrested her on fraud charges. The DNA hit on Ashley Comeau. I pulled the missing persons report. That's your case?" "That's my case," Trosclair confirmed. He booked a flight to Phoenix that evening. Ashley Comeau, or the woman who had been Ashley Comeau, sat in an interview room at Tempe Police Department headquarters on August 13th when Trosclair arrived. She wore civilian clothes, not a jail uniform, as her charges were nonviolent and bail had been set. She looked different from the photos Trosclair had studied for 9 years. Her hair was shorter and darker. She had gained weight. She wore glasses. But it was her. Trosclair entered the room with Detective Cortez and a local prosecutor. Ashley looked at him without expression. "Ms. Comeau," Trosclair said, sitting across from her. "I'm Detective Raymond Trosclair. I worked your case in Louisiana. I need to know what happened." She shook her head slowly. "I don't use that name anymore." "That's who you are?" "That's who I was." Trosclair opened a folder containing photos of Nicole and Madison. He placed them on the table. "Where are they?" Ashley stared at the photos for a long moment. Her face remained neutral. "They're dead." The words hung in the air. "When?" Trosclair asked. "A long time ago." "May 2010? She nodded slightly. "Where are their bodies?" "I don't know exactly. Somewhere in the swamp. I can't tell you where." Trosclair leaned forward. "You need to tell me everything." Ashley's attorney, appointed by the court, interrupted. "My client is cooperating, but she has concerns about what she shares." "What concerns?" Trosclair asked, looking at Ashley. The official version is dangerous, Ashley said quietly. More dangerous than the truth. What does that mean? It means if I tell you what really happened, people will make up a story that makes sense to them, and that story will put me in more danger than staying quiet. Over the next 3 hours, Ashley provided a fragmentary account of events. She confirmed that all 3 women had left the festival on May 14, 2010. She confirmed they had driven to Bayou St. Clair Road intentionally. She stated that both Nicole and Madison had died shortly after they arrived there. But she refused to explain why they went to that location, who they met there, or how her friends died. I can't tell you that, she repeated multiple times. Can't or won't, Trosclair pressed. Both. She refused to name anyone else involved. She refused to describe the circumstances of the deaths. She refused to provide specific locations where the bodies might be found. You walked away from that car with them, Trosclair said. The footprints showed 3 people walking together. What happened after that? We walked into the trees. Things went wrong. They died. I didn't. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give. When asked why she fled, Ashley said she had no choice. If I stayed, I'd end up like them. Who threatened you? She didn't respond. Are you still in danger? I don't know. Trosclair tried different approaches. He appealed to her conscience, reminding her that the families had suffered for 9 years not knowing. He tried anger, accusing her of abandoning her friends. He offered deals, suggesting that cooperation might reduce any charges she faced. Nothing worked. The official version will be that we were kidnapped or killed by some random person, Ashley said at one point. That's easier for everyone. That's safer for me. The truth is more complicated and more dangerous, so I'm not telling it. The Louisiana authorities faced a dilemma. Ashley's DNA confirmed she was alive, but she provided no evidence of a crime. She claimed her friends were dead, but couldn't or wouldn't say where. Without bodies, without a crime scene, without a credible account of what happened, prosecution was nearly impossible. The fraud charges in Arizona were straightforward. Ashley had been using a false identity, had obtained credit cards under that identity, had committed various financial crimes. She pleaded guilty in September 2019 and received a sentence of 18 months, with credit for time served and potential early release for cooperation. But she never cooperated on the missing persons case. Detective Trosclair flew to Arizona twice more to interview her. He brought photos of the search operation, hoping to trigger some emotional response. He brought letters from the families, begging for answers. He brought maps of the area where the car had been found, asking her to mark possible locations. She looked at everything calmly and said nothing useful. In November 2019, based on Ashley's vague descriptions, a new search was organized in St. Tammany Parish. Cadaver dogs were brought back. Ground-penetrating radar was used in areas where the water had receded. Investigators dug in spots where Ashley had suggested they might look, though her descriptions were so imprecise as to be nearly meaningless. They found nothing. Patricia Guidry traveled to Arizona in December 2019 to confront Ashley in person. The meeting was arranged through attorneys and supervised. Patricia sat across from the woman who had been her daughter's best friend. "Where is Nicole?" Patricia asked, her voice breaking. Ashley looked at her with what might have been sympathy. "I'm sorry, I can't help you." "Can't or won't?" "Does it matter?" Patricia broke down. "She was your friend. You owed her more than this." Ashley's expression didn't change. "I owed her a lot of things. I failed." That was all she would say. James Hebert refused to speak with Ashley. When investigators asked if he wanted to meet her, he declined. "She knows where my daughter is," he said. "If she won't tell me, I have nothing to say to her." Melissa Como had a different reaction. When detectives informed her that Ashley was alive, her first response was relief, then anger. "She let us think she was dead for 9 years," Melissa said. "Do you know what that does to a family? And now she won't even explain why?" The media coverage of Ashley's discovery was intense but brief. Local news stations in Louisiana ran stories about the woman who came back. National outlets picked it up for a few days. Then the story faded when it became clear there would be no dramatic revelations or trial. Ashley was released from custody in Arizona in March 2020. She disappeared again immediately. Investigators believe she moved to another state under another name, but efforts to track her were limited. She had committed no violent crimes. She was not a fugitive. She was simply a woman who wanted to vanish, and this time she knew how. What Ashley Comeau did during those 9 years remains largely unknown. Financial records showed that Sarah Mitchell, the identity she used in Arizona, had been established in 2017. Bank accounts, a driver's license, employment history at a retail store in Scottsdale. Before that, there was nothing. No credit card activity, no tax returns, no digital footprint. She lived off the grid for 7 years, Detective Cortez noted. Cash jobs probably, moving frequently, using different names that never got documented. Then in 2017, she took a risk and created a more permanent identity. That's what got her caught. Where she lived from 2010 to 2017 is speculation. Investigators found no evidence placing her in any specific location. She could have been anywhere. When asked during interviews about those years, Ashley gave minimal responses. She had worked. She had moved around. She had stayed quiet. "I survived," she said. "That's all that mattered." The family struggled with Ashley's return in different ways. Patricia Guidry found herself caught between hope and despair. Part of her wanted to believe that if Ashley was alive, perhaps Nicole was too. Perhaps Ashley was lying about the deaths to protect herself. Perhaps both girls were out there somewhere, but the rational part of her knew better. "If Nicole was alive, she would have called," Patricia said in an interview in late 2019. "She wouldn't put us through this. Ashley came back because she had to. She got caught. Nicole hasn't come back because she can't." James Hebert accepted his daughter's death more readily. "Madison wouldn't hide for 9 years," he said. "That wasn't who she was. If she could come home, she would have. Ashley says she's dead. I believe that part." Melissa Comeau felt betrayed. Her sister was alive but had chosen to stay away, even after being discovered. "She could tell us what happened," Melissa said. "She won't. That's a choice. I don't know if I can forgive that." The investigation into what actually happened on May 14, 2010, continued, but with little progress. Detective Trosclair, though retired, remained involved. He reviewed Ashley's statements repeatedly, looking for inconsistencies or details that might lead somewhere. He found nothing actionable. The prepaid phone that called Nicole at the festival remained untraceable. The anonymous caller was never identified. Whether that call was related to what happened later was impossible to determine. The forensic evidence from the car and the surrounding area was re-examined with newer technology in 2020. DNA